What's up guys, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a 6+ month review on the Dometic CFX3 45L. We're going to be going over the pros, cons, how I set the Dometic up, and if I would have changed anything with my purchase. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Caden. I do a new video every week on pretty much anything outdoors, camping, hiking, fishing, gear reviews like this one. So if you guys are new, definitely check out the channel. So I've had this Dometic now for about 8 months and it's gone everywhere with us since we've gotten it. It made the whole road trip down all the way from Alaska down to Nevada. We were beating this thing up pretty hard as we were driving through Canada and throughout the US as we were making our move. So about 2,000 miles, this thing was in the back of the truck. It was getting beat up, thrown around a little bit, and it's still kicking. So I've been super happy about that. A couple specs on the Dometic. So this is a 45-liter Dometic, and I believe it holds about 67 cans. You're able to make it a freezer or a fridge. So you have to choose one or the other, and you can use the app to make sure that the fridge is on, or you can use the app to set the fridge at a specific temperature. So that's been pretty handy. As of today, the Dometic is selling for about $960. When I bought it on sale, a really good sale, but shipping to Alaska killed it. But essentially I got this cooler, I think it was some kind of like before the summer sale, because I got this in June or maybe May, I think I bought it, and I got it for about $750. So it's super cheap. It was about $200 less than it is retail right now. It has a super low power consumption. And so I've been able to essentially run it off of like something like the Goal Zero Yeti 400 for about 24 hours straight without the Goal Zero dying out on me, which is really nice. I'm never in a camp spot for too long where I can't charge up the Goal Zero, and so that's what's been really nice about having a fridge that uses such low power consumption that I'm able to run it off a battery for a pretty extended amount of time. The freezer can go down all the way to -7, so you can use it as a deep freezer if you want to. The menu is really straightforward, easy to set up, easy to use. I've had no complaints about the menu or the interface of the fridge itself. A couple different options for how you want to power the cooler. You can either use DC, which is essentially the outlet on your home, or you can use AC, which is the power outlet in your car. All right guys, so this is how I have the Goal Zero set up whenever we're going camping. The Dometic is always connected to the Goal Zero Yeti 400 in the back of the truck. I'm using the AC adapter to charge the Dometic against the Goal Zero. The Goal Zero is then plugged into an inverter via its DC connection into the inverter here. And then the inverter is then connected into the truck's AC adapter, which then charges the Goal Zero whenever we're driving. So essentially it's always, staying charged whenever we're driving, and then whenever we're stopped, the Goal Zero is actually just using the Dometic is actually just using the Goal Zero as a battery pack essentially whenever we're stationed. When I first got this fridge, I was actually using the DC plug to, the normal house plug to run the fridge whenever it was connected to the Goal Zero, which totally kills the battery on the Goal Zero a lot faster than using the AC. I had no idea. I literally have this is all pretty new to me, AC, DC, electricity stuff. And so someone commented on my original video saying, hey, you can actually use the AC plug and it'll actually keep your Goal Zero alive a lot longer. So when I first got this fridge, I actually did an unboxing video on it. So I'll leave a link to that video up above. And I gave you guys some of my first impressions, why I ended up buying the fridge. I might as well tell you guys, some of the pros and cons now that I've encountered with this fridge. So one of the biggest benefits of this fridge is never having to deal with ice ever again. There was a pretty big shortage of ice in Alaska, especially during the hot summer days. But essentially, you know, whenever we're going fishing, whenever we're going camping, we literally could not find ice anywhere. Like gas stations, stores, I would have to go steal ice from my mom's house or my aunt's house or anyone's fridge who actually still had ice in it, just to, you know, get my cooler cool and keep our food, you know, cold and wet and soggy. So I love having, you know, dry food and, you know, essentially never having to worry about ice. Like I said before, the Dometic doesn't take a lot of battery power to keep it running, so that's why I'm able to use the Goal Zero to essentially keep it running for 24 hours straight without ever having to charge up the Goal Zero, because this thing uses such little power. It's awesome. This also cools up really fast. So, you know, like whenever you have a normal little ice cooler, you have to usually, you know, get it up to temperature and then put the ice that you plan on using for the rest of the day in there, so it keeps the ice cooler for longer. With the Dometic, I literally plug it in, you know, 30 minutes before we go, and it's already at temperature and we're ready to go. I put the food in there, and this allows it to use less power consumption to bring it up to temperature. And so I usually try and plug it into my garage power first. That way I can get it good and cool, and then I plug it into the Dometic. Plug it into the Goal Zero. Not that it really matters though, because as we're driving, the fridge can actually cool down and get to temperature. And then we're also keeping the Goal Zero at power and keeping it charged as we're driving. And with the 45 liter, this thing packs a ton of food. I'll have to get some video of us, you know, actually packing this down, but for a quick, you know, weekend warrior trip, we're definitely able to store all of our food, meat, cheese, eggs, drinks, all the beer that we bring, you know, easily within this fridge. The Dometic also did come with this little divider right here. I don't use it too much. It's getting the fridge dirty. I really don't use this divider too much because I like having the big open space, but this is an option to, you know, essentially divide the space within the fridge. And also, all of these little containers come out like this, so you can easily, you know, take things out, load it up really quick, and it also makes it easier to clean up in here after you've had some spills like I have. Clean it up, clean the grate out, and all that stuff. So now I'm going to go into some of the cons that I've run into as I've, you know, dove into the fridge life. One of the biggest things that was a really big drawback was buying a battery pack for the fridge. Now, you can plug the fridge directly into your AC adapter in your car, but when your car is turned off, unless that AC plug is live, even with the car off, you really can't keep the Dometic turned on and cooling off your stuff. Not so much of a big deal whenever you're in Alaska or if it's the winter time and it's cold outside, but when you're in the desert like I am nowadays, and right now it's winter time, but when we're in the heat of the summer out here, I was running this during August of last year, and we saw temperatures to about, you know, 100 degrees, 100 plus degrees, and the fridge has a hard time keeping cool in those types of conditions. And so to have a battery pack along with the fridge is super convenient, and you never want to run into the possibility of the fridge potentially draining your car battery and then you being stuck out there. So I took a lot of consideration into those for those reasons. When I first got the fridge, I did run it off of the truck AC adapter for the longest time, but at night I would actually unplug it. Supposedly though, the Goal Zero does have a sensor in it where if it realizes that its battery source is running low, it'll actually shut the fridge off before it completely drains your battery. So that's kind of one of the fail-safes of the fridge. That's really nice and a super beneficial thing. But honestly, I've never, you know, gambled with that promise because I always want to, you know, make sure my car starts. So I've never left the fridge plugged into the truck especially throughout the entire night as it's running off of the truck battery. So I've actually never done that, just to be on the safe side. But with the battery pack, one of the biggest issues that I've found is these battery packs are not cheap. So I did a lot of research on Goal Zeros, Jackeries, different types of battery packs, and I ended up going with this one. There's a lot of options on the market. Generally, the big brands are Goal Zero or the Jackery. Honestly, the only reason why I ended up going with the Goal Zero is because no one would ship a battery to Alaska. So I was literally limited to whatever store had this battery pack. And with it, literally I called every Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, West Marine, any type of RV place who would have a battery. I called them to see if they had anything in stock, and literally this was the only battery I could find other than the lithium 1000 watt that I think is like $900, and I was trying to look for something underneath 500. So I ended up purchasing this one. I think it was on sale at Sportsman's Warehouse for about $350 or $400. I've been pretty pleased with it, but I did have to drive about 4 or 3 hours to Soldotna in Alaska just to pick this up at a Sportsman's Warehouse. So that's really the only reason why I ended up with this particular battery, is because there was no one else in town actually sold these batteries, and no one would ship it because it's hazmat to Alaska. So that's why I ended up with this one. If I had to go do this again, honestly, I think I might have gone with maybe a Jackery. The reason being is, and I'll leave some footage of this down below, because I was doing some testing with the fridge and with this battery to see how long the battery would actually stay powering the fridge. So I was just curious, how many hours can this by itself keep the fridge on. And with my testing, I did get it to about 24 hours before the battery totally died, which, by the way, don't ever do that. Don't let your batteries completely die on you. It's not good for the cells in the battery and whatnot, so it's just best practice that you don't do that. But for my experiment, I just did it anyway. So the biggest issue that I've been running into with this battery is that the AC adapter sometimes just turns the fridge off. Like the fridge just stops running on the AC adapter, even though you see this little light right here is turned on. You can turn on the power sections on the Goal Zero to whatever you want it to be. And so if you're using like the DC plug, you can power those DC outlets. If you're using the USB, you can power the USB outlet. And if you're using the AC, you can power it on. So hopefully you guys can see that little dot right there. But essentially what I've been noticing is every time I plug in the fridge into the Goal Zero, sometimes the fridge literally doesn't turn on, even though the light to the AC adapter is on. And I've kind of messed with this a little bit. I thought it was a plug issue. I don't think it's a Dometic issue itself, honestly, because the Dometic has never had any issues using the DC connector. So what I'm thinking, it's either the plug on this AC adapter from the Dometic, or it's actually an issue on this AC plug off of the Goal Zero. I'm still trying to test. I do still see this issue once in a while, but notice right here, let me bring the camera up a little bit. So notice right here, there's actually 2 areas where you can unscrew the plug. So let me unscrew this for you guys real quick. There we go. So notice how you can unscrew this bottom part, and it shows a little prong right there, and then that side. So this, I've noticed, was actually was a little bit loose actually. So notice there. So I was making sure that I thought this might have been the issue because this wasn't screwed in all the way, but I also found that up here there's also a little area that will unscrew as well, and it actually takes that little piece out. So I've noticed this has actually come unscrewed a couple times, and I'm honestly am not sure if it's an issue on, you know, this plug from Dometic, or if it's an issue on my AC socket off of the Goal Zero. So if you know, please comment down below and let me know if you run into the same issue. Unfortunately, that's why I've been having to kind of check the fridge running off of the Goal Zero a lot more often, especially when we're driving, because we've arrived at our destination and I find out that the fridge has been turned off for the last hour, which is really unfortunate, because then at that time the truck is off and, you know, it's using a huge amount of power from the Goal Zero to get it back up to temperature, and that just means your battery is not going to last as long as you're out there. And the Dometic has turned off again. Womp womp. So as you can see, the current remaining battery is about 80%. This is still on. See how, like, that was on and the Dometic was still off. So okay, I just turned it back on at just the switch, didn't even touch the plug, and now we're back here. The temperature is now at 46. So all right, so continuing on with some of the cons that I found with this fridge is it is pretty big. I mean, the way I set the fridge up is I usually put it in the back seat, because that's kind of where all the power stuff is connected into the truck. I unfortunately don't have an AC or DC adapter inside of my truck bed, but if I did, I would potentially consider putting it back there. But for right now, the way I've been running it is I've been putting the fridge in the back seat next to Rio, and I'll show you guys some footage there where I have essentially the Goal Zero on the floor, and then I have the Dometic sitting on the seats in the back of the cab. And so it does take quite a bit of room, and so that's kind of one of the other cons is, that really also depends on how you pack your truck. It's a con for me because of the way I power it and the way I pack, but if you have a good way of powering it back up in the back of your truck bed, or if you have an SUV, I can definitely see that being a lot better for you. But at least a con for me, it does take up quite a bit of room inside the truck cab itself. So one of the other cons I have with this fridge, and it's because I've seen other fridges have a very good lid closing click, you know, one of those satisfying clicks that you can tell that, okay, yes, it's closed. So the Dometic has a really good opening close, but notice how it just kind of, you have to really kind of press down to see that click. So let me do that again. So you have to kind of like press it down, versus like something like the ARB, you'll notice that you can actually like click it in to give it like that affirmative close. That way you know it's really actually closed, because otherwise if you open this up, you'll never really know that the fridge isn't fully closed until you hear. And unfortunately you have to kind of like lean into the fridge to make sure it is closed. So that's one of the things that I don't particularly like about this model. So one of the last things I want to talk about is the fridge's ability to be a freezer or a fridge. One of the cons I have is that you can't do both. And when I first got this fridge, I saw it had the ability to be a freezer, but honestly, I never thought about the dual capability purpose until I saw some YouTube videos of people being able to cool their food and have popsicles at the same time. So being able to have ice cream on the trail or when you're camping, that would be amazing. But unfortunately, this is not one of those fridges. You can choose it to be either be a fridge for, you know, your eggs and your cheese and whatnot, or you can select it to be a freezer. So it's all or nothing, unfortunately. What would have been awesome was that if they could have created this section as a freezer and then this section as a fridge. So having the dual compartment zones, that's one of the cons I have with this fridge is, you know, it's all or nothing. And that's really my fault, because I really didn't think about the ability of having it to do both at the same time. I just thought it was cool that it could do one or the other. And honestly, that may be one of the biggest regrets about this fridge, is that it doesn't have dual compartment zones, especially at this particular price point. And within that same price range too, I've seen some dual zone fridges go for about, you know, $1,000. So having both would definitely be a pro, and that's one of the cons, at least on my list, for this fridge. So the last con I got is the fact that the fridge was pretty expensive. So like I said, shipping to Alaska isn't cheap, and so I ended up buying this fridge for about $950. For what it is, I think it's a good deal, but there are some alternative options out there that can just be a fridge where you just plug it into your car's AC adapter and it's good to go. Some of the other ones that I would recommend looking at would be like Tough Stuff, ARB. I think there's another one called like Luxury or something like that, where it's literally just, you know, just the fridge, plug it in. I think I've seen those for like $300 to $600, and so a fraction of the price. But again, this thing is super rugged. I don't really have any complaints about it other than my charging situation, which that could be a Goal Zero problem, as well as the dual compartment zone. I might have paid a little bit more money to have the dual compartment zone so I can have ice cream, especially now that it's so freaking hot where we're living now. Having ice cream on the trail or whenever we're out camping after a long hot day sounds amazing. That might be an upgrade in the future, but for right now, this fridge has been serving us really well. That was the last con on my list, is really just the price of these fridges are just ridiculous. But again, if you think about it, you know, some of those Yeti fridges, like those can run you a couple $100, and you know, buying ice and, you know, not having soggy food. There's a lot of pros. I don't miss having to worry about ice every single time we go out, or having to worry about ice while we're on the trail in the middle of nowhere. So that's definitely one of the pros here. Even without the battery, I'm able to plug into the car and on our way. This fridge has, you know, it's done really well. So I'm pretty happy about it. With this entire setup, including shipping of the Dometic, which is about $200, so we're looking at $750 for the Dometic itself, $200 to ship it to Alaska, $100 for the inverter, and then about I think it was $450 actually for the Goal Zero Yeti 400. I think it was actually on sale for $450, and no taxes on that. So actually about $1,500 for this entire setup. So I know there's definitely a lot cheaper, more budget-friendly options out there, but honestly, I can't complain with this setup. It's been serving us really well, and you know, I really have no complaints other than the fact that you know, I've been having some power issues, and I really wish this was a dual compartment fridge. I wish I would have done a little bit more research on that so I could make a better decision, because I would love to have some ice cream on the trail. One more thing too, I will say that I miss ice for one reason and one reason alone: to be able to put some ice in my whiskey at the end of camp. All right guys, so that concludes my review video of the Dometic CFX3 45 liter. It has been about 8 months, so I just wanted to give you guys my feedback on it and my experience with it. I hope this video has helped you guys to make your own decisions for your own camping setup. If you guys have any questions about the fridge or anything about my setup, please comment them down below. And I want to hear from you guys. How do you keep your food cold? Are you still using an old school cooler, or have you gone down the electric fridge, freezer, combo setup? So let me know down below. If you guys like more videos like this, I do new videos every week on pretty much anything outdoors, camping, hiking, fishing, gear reviews like this one. So definitely check out the channel, consider subscribing, like this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.